Zillow. It's the 8,000-pound gorilla in the real estate world, right? But can real estate wholesalers find cash buyers on Zillow? Inquiring wholesalers want to know. Mac Jr. asks, what's the best way to find cash buyers for my deals using Zillow? Can you please detail or demonstrate a process that you would use to find cash buyers for deals using Zillow?
Good question. Can I just share my screen and show you what I would do?
Yeah, please.
I was looking at a deal in Huntsville, Alabama. And let's just say this house here, I talked to the seller and they said, yeah, I might do a lease purchase, or let's just say they want to sell it. Let's just keep it simple, because the question was cash buyer, right? Mm-hmm. And they say, yeah, I want to sell this property. So what I would do is I would go here. I would go into the search bar here and paste that address in. Now, what I just did was make this property in the center of the map. Okay? The center of the map. Now, if I zoom out, I can see rental properties. So what I'm looking for, let me just look for houses here. These are properties that are listed for rent. Guess who owns them typically? Other investors.
Some high percentage of them are going to be investors, not just mom and pops who couldn't sell it.
Yeah. So these are investors that own these properties. And this may be a bad example. I mean, this is like a nice suburban area in Huntsville. Let's do something a little better, a better example. A lot of these will actually be homeowners that were trying to sell their house but couldn't. Those are good lease option candidates, right? So let's just look for, instead, let me do price max 1,200, or let's do max 1,000. So this is right in this area, the northeastern part of Huntsville, are where all the investors are. These are definitely these are investor landlords that are buying these houses, right? So let's look at this house, for example. And if I copy this address and if I paste it here, okay, then I close this. That house is in the center of the map. And I'm looking at, now I'm going to just look at all the rentals here, okay, that are houses. And I'm going to just zoom out. Here is 22 landlords that own rental properties in those areas. And chances are they're looking for another one. And then if I zoom out again, guess what? I'm going to get 78. One of the things you might even think about doing is like, well, I don't know. I was going to say, like, you could just every week go in and look for the new rentals and get the new landlords. Because once it's rented, it's usually taken off of Zillow. But, there's 78 properties here that are currently listed for rent, and an owner owns it. So what I might do is I might find out who the owner is of this property here. And you're not going to get the owner on Zillow. Sometimes you will on Redfin, but you probably not. But I would go to the county records and get the owner's information, who owns that rental property. And I like to send what I call a desperate motivated buyer yellow letter. And it's a yellow letter if I've got a property in that area. And I'm going to handwrite this yellow letter. I like using red ink. And I'm going to write, desperate. I need to sell my property at 123 Main Street. I've had it listed. I've had it on the market for some time now. I can't wait any longer. Underline. I need this thing sold today. The taxes are paid. The title is clear. Drive by, take a look at it. Call me. I need this thing sold yesterday. Exclamation point, underline. Please help. I'm desperate. Call me. Joe, phone number, okay? Take that letter, crumple it up, fold it back, put it in an invitation envelope, hand address the envelope with a live stamp, and you mail it to these 78 landlords that own these rental properties out there. I guarantee you're going to get calls from that, right? I've gotten so many calls from that letter. They call me and say, man, I got to tell you something. That's the coolest letter ever. I know exactly what you're doing, but I just wanted to tell you I'm going to use that letter. I love that.
Hat tip to the marketing pro.
It's a great letter.
So brilliant, because that's the modern day version of what I used to do early in my career back in the early 2000s, right? Before the internet was even really viable. I would drive around neighborhoods where I had a wholesale deal under contract and say, do I see any for rent signs? Because those are the landlords. And as soon as I drove by, I'd call up and say, hey, guy, I see your house for rent. I got another one for sale in the area. I really need to sell quickly, and I usually sell them pretty cheap. Are you interested? And you said earlier they're looking for another deal. They may not be looking for another deal, but they may be interested in another deal if they know you have one that's in proximity to one they already own, because neighborhood controlling the quality of the neighborhood can make a big difference to a current landlord who maybe isn't interested in just going out buying more deals aggressively. It's kind of like hunting for gold. You can sift those buyers that aren't really looking yet.
Exactly. One other thing I'll show you, maybe you can't find who the actual buyers are, but guess what? You can find the realtors who know who the buyers are. And there's a couple ways you can do that. Like this house here. I guarantee you a realtor is listed. This guy, Adam Stultz, I'm surprised he works for Sotheby's. Usually Sotheby's, whatever you pronounce it, is like a premier real estate agent. But usually a realtor that lists a property like this is working with other investors, all right? He or she might know other investors, or they're willing to, they just know these neighborhoods, and their chances are they're working with other investors. So I would contact these agents and say, hey, listen, I know you got this property listed on Fairway Drive. I'm an investor. I got another property. I'm looking for a buyer. Do you know any investors that might be looking to buy a property in this area? And what I did is I just did a search for up to 75 grand. So I'm looking for cheaper rundown properties that only an investor would want to buy, right? This is only an investor would want to buy this house. This agent, a lot of times these are newer agents, you know, the more experienced top producers are probably not going to list a house like this. So the ones that are just getting started in the business, they're hungry, they're hustling, they're probably going to work these kinds of properties, right? So you can call them. Say, hey, I'm looking for somebody that can help me that may want to buy my property. It's in your same neighborhood as yours. The other thing I'll show you here is this. You can go to Solds. Look at Solds. There's obviously a ton of them here. I'm going to go sold in the last, let's just say 6 months. Okay, these are all the price houses under $75,000. And if there's too many, there's 234. Maybe I'll just zoom in because that house is still in the center where I was, right? I'm going to zoom in. Maybe I can make this 100,000 instead. All right, here's 21 properties. This one sold for 27 grand. Who was the realtor that represented the seller and the buyer? I don't know if you can find it here. I don't think you can find it here, but you can certainly go to, if you Google this, a lot of times you can find these older properties in Google somewhere. If you have access to the MLS, you can find you just need to get access to the MLS because it makes everything so much easier. You could go in and find out who was the listing agent who listed this property, number one, and who was the buyer's agent who represented the buyer. And contact that buyer's agent and say, hey, I see that you sold a house recently to somebody on Oakwood Avenue. I have another property that's similar to this one that I think your client might be interested in. Do you mind? Can I tell you a little bit about it? Would you have any interest in it? Or do you know anybody who might be interested in it? And you have to approach that realtor with like, hey, listen, you can represent me and get both sides of the commission. Just make sure that commission is built into your price and into your profit. So you can get realtors to bring you buyers, and you can just tell the realtor, listen, I'm selling this thing. I want to make at least 50. I want to sell it for at least 60 grand. So anything above that you can keep as your commission. And so contact the listing agents and the buyer's agents of these houses that are active and sold, and just contact them and call them. These realtors know the investors that are out buying properties in these neighborhoods. So does that make sense? We talked about three things. Number one, contacting the landlords. Contact the property managers that are listing those properties as well. Ask them, do you have any other clients that are looking for homes in this area? You know, you can represent me and get both sides of the commission if you bring me a buyer. Just add your commission on top of my price. Go look for the sold properties in that neighborhood that are kind of the rundown properties that only investor-friendly realtors typically would list. And then looking for the solds, look for the listing agents and the buyer's agents of those sold properties.
Man, finding cash buyers on Zillow. Fast, easy, and awesome.
There's a lot of them. And I
Yeah.
guarantee you, the guy who bought this house here for $18,500 used cash.
Yeah.
So how do you find out who bought it? Well, then you take this property, you go look in county records. You go to and find out who it is, and find their phone number, send them a letter, give them a call.
Awesome.